Welcome back to a special episode of the Roll with Steve podcast, where we're going to go through some of my most enjoyable conversations from episodes 11 through 20. And we're going to start off with number 1, Max Schur, on this idea of niching down for your business. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we like to think that we can do a little bit of everything for everyone, and that just isn't the case. Let's listen to what Max had to say about this.
So how did you decide to niche your agency down to focus on websites first?
The day I decided to make this change was one of the most painful days of my career. I had probably 30 clients on retainer. This was probably my junior year of college. I had 30 clients on retainer. I had 8 or 9 staff members at this point, and it was totally unsustainable because every single client was under that same arrangement that I was just describing to you. We hadn't evolved it yet at that point. It was, we'll do whatever we can do for you.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to be successful, we'll do for you. And that worked great when it was just me doing it for 3 clients.
Yeah.
And when there was just 3 of us doing it for 9 clients, right? But eventually, what we were doing for all these people was so scattered, and quality assurance was falling apart. And our ability to deliver consistently was falling apart. And our ability to keep track of timelines was coming apart. And I kept having to try and re-engineer a system to keep track of everything. And it just wasn't working. It was chaotic. The people who were working with me were doing their best. And I would even say they were talented people at that time, even though we were all kids. It was completely down to everybody consulting my brain for every decision. And everyone was burnt out. And no one was doing good. We were making good money, but it wasn't really sustainable. So I was talking to a friend about the issue that I was having, and he recommended a book to me. It's called Built to Sell. At that time, I had no intentions of building an agency for the purpose of selling it or having any kind of an exit strategy. This was my first introduction to that concept. But what they talk about is building a systematizable, productized service business, which is a whole area of expertise that I didn't even know I was missing. But once I read the book, everything clicked. And I made this really hard decision to slash 80% of our retainers and keep the ones that were the most profitable, that were the happiest with us, that were doing one service. And that service was web design and web maintenance.
Sure.
So that was what our business became. And as a result of that, I had to let go of staff as well. And that's why it was so painful.
Yeah.
Giving proper notice and terminating a contract is one thing, but letting go of staff who've been working really hard with you is substantially harder. I also had to take a personal pay cut for a while, but I'd built some savings, so I was going to be okay. But it was 3 steps back to hopefully take 6 steps forward. You know, that was kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
And it was scary.
You know, one thing that hits me in that story is you talk about letting staff go. Particularly when you're letting staff go that did exactly what you asked them to do when they joined the company.
It's always your fault.
And your focus changed, not what they were doing, even though it was the right thing for the company. It doesn't hurt any less to know that, like, you didn't even do anything wrong. I just changed my mind on what I wanted to focus on, and so I was wrong about I've been there, and that's harder than telling a client, hey, I'm not going to do business with you anymore.
For
You
sure.
know, you've made promises to people, and sure, it's an employment contract that can be terminated, but that feels really shitty when you have to go through that. I'm sure that took some bouncing back from on your side.
It sucked, and I'll tell you what, I'd be lying if I said that was the only time it's happened. I think it's happened twice, that time and one other time, and it never gets easier.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that so many entrepreneurs deal with. It's one of the things that no one really tells you you're going to go through when you talk about, oh, I'm going to build this business, and sure, like, the money is great, the vision is cool, like being ready to go after your dreams, but you're also making a lot of promises to people that when you make the promise, like, you intend for that to be there forever, but it goes away. The vision changes over time, and what's right for the business, sometimes you put yourself in a situation where you kind of have to do some soul searching yourself to realize, like, wow, like, is this what I really signed up for when I wanted to start my own business? And you're doing this as a junior in college, right?
Yes.
I mean, so just the fact that you had 10 employees as a junior in college, you're running a business, you've got tens of thousands of dollars of monthly recurring revenue coming in, and you make this decision to downsize it into websites. Okay, that sucks to live that day, But now talk me through making that decision and where you sit today with your business being focused on what you're really, really good at now.
You know, it was a painful decision to make, but it was also an easy decision to make. The life that all of us were living was one of stress, uncertainty, lack of sleep. No one that I let go of was being let go of a happy work-life balance, you know?
Yeah.
And we were, I thought we were paying them well, but looking back at it, they were probably underpaid as well. So maybe this sounds like justification, and maybe it is. But when I look back at that time, I see that was going to fall apart anyways. I just decided it's going to fall apart today so those of us who are staying with the company can grow.
Yeah.
And the rest of us, and the rest of them had to, unfortunately, go find other means of supporting themselves.
Yeah.
In terms of how that moved us forward, it was obviously the right decision. And later on, we started adding back in services, but adding services on once you're a successful company versus adding services on because you're just trying to say yes to everybody, that's a different process.
Yeah.
And I would encourage most people who are running a service business, if you're running a service business watching this, limit what you do. Do as few things as possible until you're very, very good at those things, and then add on additional services. I promise you, it will save you so much pain, so much money, so much wish I wouldn't have done this 10 years later.
It's counterintuitive, though. I think a lot of people, especially in the SMMA space, think, well, if I do the websites and if I offer them these 9 other services, they won't churn as fast on these contracts I have them on. But you speak from experience, and no, this is going to be better for everyone long term to do it this way.
Absolutely. Because what's definitely going to make people churn is if you start breaking promises. And the fastest way to start breaking promises is to overpromise.
Max said it perfectly. Stop trying to be all things to all people in your business. Focus on getting good at one thing. And I would say focus on becoming lethal at one thing. We try to do too much and overgeneralize what we do, and we become masters of none. See, the jack of all trades isn't a good thing in entrepreneurship. It's a great thing if you want to be an employee in a business, but if you listen to this podcast, you probably are interested in entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship means that you are going out and building something that you become lethal in, the best in the world in. It's so much better for you to be the best in the world at one thing than to be great at a lot of little things. Because to be great in a lot of little things isn't going to get you paid or bring revenue into your business. Focus on niching down into one area and becoming lethal in that area. And then get your team focused around becoming lethal in that one area, and you'll build a business that lasts the test of time. All right, on to the next one. I sat down with 2 stone cold killers, a couple of special forces and really high elite military men who are now involved in the world of business. They've taken the things that they've learned from being special forces and being pilots in the military, and they're applying that into a business world and finding great success. We dug into this whole concept about going into business with friends and whether or not that's a good thing to do or a bad thing. Let's take a look.
A lot of people said, like, don't go into business with friends. I totally disagree with that statement. I think if you know that friend and know that they have your best interests at heart for family, for work, for everything, there's no threat in going into business with friends. If anything, it's been a great experience working with friends because we have each other's best interests at heart. So if I tell Josh to red sell something for me, I'm why'd you say that to me? No.
But I would argue that going into business with friends, I have to cross my arms to show my obstinance to what you just said. There's a difference in going to business with friends that you were in college with and going to business with friends that you met in elite levels of the military, or friends that you fought next to, friends that you had their back in combat, versus the friend that, we were in chemistry together and I think it's a cool dude. We played on an intramural basketball team. So like we're going to go into business together.
True.
I mean, what say you to that? To that friend going into business with that friend?
Yeah, I would say a lot of shared life and like actually going through huge ebbs and flows and life stressors with people shows you their true mettle. Those are the people that I'm talking about. Those are the people you can trust, like true lifelong like friends that are going to be there. yeah, your homie from the frat party shooting shots.
Yeah.
Not what I mean.
When you get to know someone's character and you've seen them in difficult times, see, I always talk about how sometimes we date people in optimal conditions. Like you don't really see your wife tired until like after you have the baby. You don't really see someone sick because you don't really hang out with them when you're dating until it's just, oh, we go out on date night together. Everyone's on their best behavior. I'm putting on a show of what I want you to think about me and vice versa. Then you get into a long-term relationship and you see the other sides of people. Well, nobody changed. They're just showing you the rest of them. This is me when I'm tired and I'm an asshole when I'm tired. And like, that's who you married. So like, you're welcome. But I think the same thing applies in business partnerships, where sometimes we have friends that we've been friends with in optimal conditions. There wasn't money on the line. It was fun to go to the casino with them, but when we all put in $50K, all of a sudden, like you see the difference of those people. What are your opinions on that, Josh?
So this is my third venture now with Matt of working with, I've worked with basically 3 separate friend groups since being.
Do you consider Matt to be a friend, or is he just more an acquaintance?
That's a good question. We should define friend.
That's right. Everything needs a definition. Okay.
I mean, I think friends do give you routine back rubs at night, right? I mean,
is that what happened last night?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm here for him.
Yeah, I was sore.
He was stressed.
It's a good.
I just want to say I left after the chicken wings. That wasn't a part of the back rub. So
those chicken wings were still hanging out this morning. That was a bad decision. No, I think that I would agree with Matt because I think there is challenges working with family, undoubtedly, right? It comes back to, is this person as a friend, is it somebody that I think Matt hit the nail on the head, that I align values with, and then I can hear the truth from, that I trust. We were talking earlier, I've been really trying to go through the last couple of years through the book of Proverbs, and you've got Solomon here as a historical figure, as the richest guy that ever lived, most industrious, like accomplished some incredible things. And throughout the book of Proverbs, he talks about words from friends and your ability to receive what are wounds that heal, as he says, that basically scour away evil. And so I think for a lot of people, it is hard to receive critical feedback, especially if it's your baby. It's my business plan. Like, how could you make, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But having somebody that that, like, I know that if Matt says this to me, it's because he really cares about me. And it's not because Matt's trying to puff up his own ego, but he's like, look, I really don't want you to do this because you're going to run off the road. That's dumb. So I think it comes back to, very much an alignment of, we have some core values that are aligned together, and that, we undoubtedly trust one another. I think for like a big one for us is that we believe in Jesus Christ and that he saved us from our sins. We believe that the Bible is true. So that stands, just like it does in our marriages, as a foundation for us to evaluate one of the things that I think is very dangerous in business, which is greed, transparently. And so, like, what can break up very much a good business partnership is, how are we going to do this? And to make money, are we willing to go to some lines that are like, that's really gray, ethical, moral, I don't know. And like, or are you going to be like, we're just going to stay as far away from that as possible and as best as we can. Right. But there's an aligned value there. Like, remember who we are as people, because I think for Matt and I, at the end of the day, if we violate who we are supposed to be as people, that's going to be a no-go to each of us. And we're going to say, dude, that is not us. Right. And so I think it is, with your friends, it's not like, again, it's any friend. There is some core components there that I think are going to be critical for a successful business relationship, because you have to red sell each other. If you don't, it's kind of like a marriage, right? In a marriage, if you're not willing to receive feedback from your spouse, that marriage is never going to work. Across the board.
So if you don't have friends who, you guys know each other's values, being family men, being men of faith, that adds to the component of also knowing the background of what you both have to understand the character of that. But if you don't have friends that you can trust to red sell your business plan, you got to find a new group of people to hang out with.
Absolutely. To me, it's necessary.
Having somebody to truly keep you accountable to your true values while you're growing, while you're flourishing, while you're creating this new life, if you will.
Yeah.
Having somebody like true accountability partner, brother going through stuff, that's been huge for us.
I like the way you use the word accountable there. You know, sometimes accountability is holding someone up to the level of their potential, not the level of the idea that they brought you. And I think that it takes a true friend and someone who's red selling you to look at that business plan and say, yeah, okay, I know you could do this. Let's think bigger. Let's go further with it because I know your potential is so much greater than this.
Should you go into business with friends or shouldn't you? I want to know what you think on that. Leave us a comment down below. Let us know whether or not that's a good idea to go into business with friends. Look, I've been involved in business with friends and family. I've had great experiences, and I've had absolutely terrible experiences being involved with those two groups. That being said, if you are going to be in business with friends and family, be with someone who is comfortable telling you and doing what they said, red selling your operations, looking at where you might be weak and telling you as a friend, as a family member, here's something for you to watch out for. Here's where there might be some cracks in your plan. What you don't want to be is be around yes people who just tell you that whatever you say is a great idea, that's phenomenal. And that happens a lot with family. It may also happen a lot with friends to go along with that too. But my point here is that if you're going to take the leap to go into business with friends and family, make sure you're getting involved with people that don't mind giving you bad news or telling you that they think that might be a bad idea. Now, after my experience of being involved with friends and family in business, my consensus would be I don't advise it. I've had some great experiences, but I've also had some really awful ones that have ruined relationships for a lifetime. So when it comes down to it, it's your decision to make who you partner with. But more often than not, that business relationship is not going to be a rosy path. And the friendship or the relationship with the family might just get destroyed in the process. If you're willing to risk it, go ahead and do it. But I think there's a big difference in being involved with people that you've had shared life experience with and gone through really, really difficult things than getting with someone that you just kind of know and you've seen them in the good times. Because business is not only going to be good times, there's going to be a lot of bad times involved in that too, and a lot of working through issues that feels bad until you get to something good. All right, on to the next one. I sat down with Joe Boyd, who just blew my mind thinking about stories and stories that we tell for our businesses. The better storyteller you are, the more revenue your business is probably going to make, especially in the world of content that we're in today. But most businesses get this wrong. I was getting this wrong. And Joe explained to me how we should be positioning our stories to our customers. Who is going to be the hero of the story? Who's the mentor of the story? Let's see what Joe has to say.
Every great business puts themselves in the mentor part of the story, not the hero part of the story. But it's human nature to think of ourselves as the heroes. This is really hard for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because, you're thinking, okay, I'm starting whatever it is, starting Uber. Like the hero of this story is Uber. It's this company.
Yeah.
But it's not, it has to be the mentor. The hero is the person that can't get somewhere because they don't have a car. That's the hero. And so then the dragon becomes, the thing that's preventing them to get where they want to go. And our sword, as the mentor, we hand them a sword, which is our product. So to me, the company or the entrepreneur is the mentor. The product is the sword. The dragon is the classic problem that you would have put in a business plan.
Sure.
The treasure is what the hero really wants. And when those things work, then, I think sometimes we then forget to tell the story that way. We still fall back on mind that when it comes time to tell the story, whether that's marketing or whatever, we can fall back on trying to just prove that we're a hero.
Yeah.
But I would always start with the pain of the customer because that's what the mentor has the sword to kill the dragon.
Yeah. Listening to you give that speech, and I think the way you put it so visually of, showing the hero who's trying to get to the treasure with the dragon in the middle. And then you drew that you can't defeat the dragon until you get to a mentor who gives you the sword to defeat the dragon. And then even those elements of realizing that sometimes that hero loses the sword prior to having to face the dragon, and they realize that then it was never the sword, it was them. Okay, all of those things being true, and you put it into the context of this business, The first thing that I recognized as you were giving that talk was that in many cases, I had positioned my businesses, either the product or the founder, as the hero, instead of them being the mentor and the sword. Maybe that's just the narcissist in me, but do you find that to be commonplace with a lot of companies?
It's instinct. It's instinct because we are all. I really believe this stuff to my core. Like I actually believe we're all going through our own hero's journey in a cyclical way, and our survival instincts, our orphaned heart, puts us in the hero role in our story. So it takes some maturity to realize I don't always have to be the hero of the story. I can be the mentor.
Stop making yourself the hero of your own story. Your customer is the hero. As business owners and entrepreneurs, we have to make our businesses the mentor to our customer for their hero journey. It's about the problems that they're going through that our sword or our solution helps them to solve. I got this wrong for so many years. I made the company the hero. I've made the founder of the company the hero. I've made the product the hero, when in reality, it's the customer who uses the product, who's on their hero's journey. They're the hero. Once I understood this, my whole perspective changed. And the way that we're telling stories today is very different than the way it was before my conversation with Joe. So I appreciate him sharing that with us. On to the next one. I sat down with Jackie Reese, who happens to be my chief of staff here at Rolle Management, working with me in multiple businesses. And she's got some really interesting insight on fake it till you make it. We all know that term. Here's what she had to say about it.
How do you balance this confidence you talk about and saying that women need more confidence against the idea of fake it till you make it, which you've told me you don't believe in that?
Yeah, I hate fake it till you make it.
Why is that?
Because it's not authentic. You're not being real and you're not going to grow. If I'm pretending I know, as opposed to saying like, hey, I have no clue how to do that, but give me the opportunity, I'm going to figure it out. And I've opened the door to be able to say like, hey, help. And I've opened the door to be like, okay, now I would like my gold star because I figured it out. You know what I mean? And there's so much confidence to be had the day you figured it out. And the day that you figure it out, I can figure it out again. Like, keep throwing stuff at me. I'll figure it out. But if you're just sitting around faking it, you're living unauthentic and you're not building confidence because you're a liar.
Yeah. I think employers see that too, because there's that semblance of you come in faking it till you make it. Mm-hmm. And you put off this bravado that like, I know how to do this already. I can get this stuff done. Yeah. You're faking it. And then you end up over-promising and under-delivering on it. What did you find as you were authentic about, here's the skill set that I have, the limitations, and this eagerness to learn on the other side of it? Like, I can go teach myself and just go figure it out. Talk to me about how that moved you forward in your career once you were owning the fact and you weren't faking it anymore.
Once I had the confidence to be able to say, like, hey, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. There was things that were handed to me that I was like, well, I didn't want to have to figure that one out. But there was also things that I was like, I never would have imagined that someone would trust me with this. I didn't think someone would trust me with running their podcast because I'd never watched a podcast before. But you want me to figure it out? Let's go. Let's figure it out. I don't know. I think what I found is confidence.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that breeds confidence the most, this comes from my time in the military, is we would have these things called confidence courses. You have a water confidence course. You could have a, I forget if they called it, it's like a heights confidence course. But they would put you through things that would make you extremely uncomfortable. And then you come out the other side and you're still alive. Like you get to walk across a 40-foot balance beam. Yeah. And the bar's like this and you're thinking in your mind, like, no. I can't do this. My legs are shaking and there's a step in the middle I have to go over. But when you come down the other side of it, you realize, okay, my body's not going to let me die, number one. And you have the confidence that if I do that again, I've been there before, I've done it. And maybe the challenge isn't going to be a balance beam the next time, but it's just something else that's hard, that terrifies me, but I've been there and done it before.
So fake it till you make it might just be a myth. Now, there's two sides to this coin, and I've been on both of them. I've been the guy who said, I'm starting a business, nobody knows I exist yet, and if I tell them I don't have any experience, nobody's gonna hire me. On the other side, I've been the guy who says, hey, this is my first time doing this, customer, but you're gonna have all my attention and I'm gonna go and figure this out for you. It works out well in an employment stance to be very open and honest about your skill set with your bosses to make sure that they understand what they're getting and you can over and exceed those expectations that they have coming in. On the customer side of the house, I'm still a little bit confused and perturbed about, well, which one is right? Should we be going out and faking it and acting like our businesses are more established than they are? Especially if customers aren't going to find out. And I don't know the answer to that question. All we can do is talk about the facts and the pros and cons on both sides of the house. But I want to know from you, is fake it till you make it a good strategy for a new business? Or should we be brutally honest and tell people, hey, we haven't figured this out yet. We haven't actually had any paying customers yet. You'd be the first one. Would you want to hear that if you were a customer? Or would you feel more confident with someone faking it until they made it? And then you find out years later when you read their book that you were the first customer. How would you feel about that? We may never know. For our next highlight, I flew down to Austin, Texas to sit down with the one and only Ben Wolf, who's absolutely revolutionizing the short-term rental space right now. And real estate as a whole, building tree houses on land and renting them out by the night. Kind of like a hotel, but there's 30 tree houses on one plot of land. A really, really cool concept, and I had to sit down with him. I asked him one question, though, that I wanted to know. Who's more likely to fail in the future? One of the big flag hotel companies or an Airbnb type company? Let's see what he had to say. 20 years from now, who's more likely to fall? A Hilton or a Marriott? Or is it an Airbnb or a Booking.com? Which sector, the OTAs or one of the big hotel giants, is more likely to fail in the next 20 years, in your opinion?
That's a really tough question.
I told you no curveballs. I had one for you, just one.
Man, they're so different. It's tough to say. I can tell you why I think both of them will persist in some form or fashion, and then maybe I can get to which one's more likely to work out or not work out. I'll do the thought process.
There we go.
Kind of like my McKinsey consulting case answer.
Let's do it.
So I think that the big flags, they're really good at group business. They're really good at corporate business. You know, that's very relationship driven. It's higher touch. There's this whole point system that you're wrapped into. The business traveler really cares about uniformity, conformity, consistency. They want it to be the same. They want it, to know. Now that may change, but I do think that there's still an element of truth to that. If you're a business traveler and you want to kind of get in, get out, and there's more bleisure going on, but that is sort of dialing back a little bit from peak COVID when that was the norm and everybody was doing that. So that's where the big flags make their money, and I think will continue to for quite a while. I could see a world, though, in the future where even the business traveler wants that uniformity and consistency, but also wants experiential. Mm-hmm. And they also want something fun and vibey for the hours that they're not working, right? So they want a group that's going to connect with them on social media. Like they want to have that connection. So when the Gen Alphas come of age and all they've ever known is social media, right? Like the big brands will have to adapt, or they will at some point they'll become obsolete. Yeah. And I think that it's more likely actually the latter, that they'll become obsolete, because I don't believe that innovation is in their DNA. How a lot of these big flags sort of innovate, make the stock price go up, whatever, is they buy other independent brands and then hopefully don't ruin them, but in some cases ruin them or dilute them quite a bit, right? So that doesn't seem like a sustainable long-term strategy. They also yeah, they're also gatekeepers of data, right? They're very much gatekeepers. So they're not very owner-friendly in some ways. They kind of force you to do things. And we're developing this other property, besides for the Florida one. The other project we're working on is an ultra-luxury It's an ultra-luxury property in Page, Arizona, by Lake Powell, this amazing red rock formations. And it's like 20 minutes from Amangiri, with one of the original developers of Amangiri, which is probably the most famous successful landscape hotel in the country, if not the world. And I had a conversation with this original developer that was basically like, do you think Aman did more for Amangiri, or do you think Amangiri did more for Aman? And I think it's pretty clearly the latter, because you created this one-of-a-kind property that was super, Instagrammable, attracted all the celebrities, in this massive canyon, super grandiose, like all about power and status and all this stuff that Amangiri's about. That built the Aman brand in the US. And so I think it's only a matter of time that owners are going to start to realize that, like, if I build an amazing asset, I'm doing more for the brand than they're doing for me. They're just feeing me to death. I'm in these long-term contracts, right? They're gatekeeping all the data. They own the customer data. And it's becoming increasingly easier for that owner to run a social media content strategy, to connect with that guest directly. It's becoming a lot more democratized in that way. So as I'm talking this through, I think it's more likely the flags, because I think Airbnb I do think that they are more customer focused and guest focused than like some of the big hotel flags. They're thinking about personalization. They're thinking about, how do I serve up the best property at the best price for this person? They have a whole like AI department, right? Like, I believe in them as an innovator that will figure it out more than I believe in these big corporate giants that are sort of, living off of past success and this like, boomer loyalty locked in network. Right. At some point that's going to phase out. So I'd bet on Airbnb on that front. Though I don't know about Booking.com. I don't know enough about them. But yeah, Airbnb, I do think, though, it's going to become harder and harder for hosts. So then the question becomes, like, does it just become professional operators? Like where does it become? And it probably bifurcates. It's probably like the mom and pops that are doing it themselves, 1, 2, whatever properties. And then I would think that somebody's going to figure out the scale size, or at least like mid-scale, and there'll be a bunch of multi-thousand property VR companies.
Yeah, I think Costco is a good example of that with their franchise model that's popping up right now. But you heard it here first. Ben Wolf says Hilton's dead in 20 years. So, like, put it down on paper.
Unless maybe Hilton works with us and they figure out how to connect with the modern traveler.
That'd be the way to do it. Because business travel, with the rise of AI, is going to come down over 20 years. Like, most of us will not have to have jobs. Like, our kids may not ever have to have jobs because our GDP is
universal income
by AI.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with
So does Hilton need to have their business offerings at that point, or is the AI traveling?
At that point, it's about leisure. It's about experience, right? It's like, how are you making me feel something? How are you, like, back to that authenticity, right? If like, you don't need a job, and if AI is doing everything for you, like, what are you're searching for that experience, right? You're searching for that feeling. And, VR may do something with that, but I do think there will always be this, in the real world, kind of like, I want to experience that in real life. At least I think. I could be wrong.
So this is interesting. Ben Wolf's on the record saying that Airbnb is probably going to outlast some of these larger hotels that exist in our ecosystem today. And I wonder about this. It's a hard question. How would you answer this question? Do you think Hilton goes out before Airbnb? Or do you think that Marriott and Hilton are relatively safe compared to these OTAs or online travel agencies? I'd love to know what you think. Put it down in the comments below. Our next highlight is with Chris Waschuk, one of the founders of HTD Talent, that's revolutionizing the staffing industry with a new hire, train, deploy model. Chris got a start early in entrepreneurship as a gym owner, and he found out that what he thought being a business owner was all about wasn't actually the case. Let's take a look. What do people think being a business owner actually is versus what you found out? What were your presuppositions about that?
It was a slap in the face. The reality hit. So to back up a little bit, I was an intern in college for a big gym owner in Washington, D.C., and I guess I did great work for him, because a year after I graduated, he called me and says, hey, I want to start this new concept, small group exercise, personal training studios, similar to like what Barry's Boot Camp became, something like that. But get out a big box gym, move into this. And he's like, he was a young guy starting a family. His wife his wife was from Costa Rica, so they'd be spending a lot of time there. He's like, I want to give you a portion of the business. I want you to help run it for me. And I'm like, man, this guy trusts a 23-year-old idiot.
From intern to owner all of a sudden.
And I'm like, he wants me to be the boss. And I'm like, I could be the boss. I've worked at ice cream stores, Chick-fil-A.
I'm ready.
I could totally do this. And then I get there, and then we open up, and we have the budget and all the people, and I'm like, man, we need to hire people. I'm like, well, where's that money coming from? We're like, oh. So I'm assuming you're going in, and you're like, well, who cleans the bathroom at the gym? That shower's dirty. There's been a lot of people using that shower. The towels are stacking up from all the sweat rags, and you're like, oh yeah. That's me.
That's me.
So you get slapped in the face with reality really quick, becoming a business owner. All the things that if you've worked at a bigger company, people have roles, and you just have to do it all. Who builds the website? Shout out Squarespace. It took me 40 hours to do a drag and drop website that was complete shit. And somebody had to come in and redo it eventually. But that entrepreneurship, you go in thinking you're going to have people to boss around and say, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. But really you have to earn the right to do that.
Yeah.
You have to make enough money and prove the concept and develop the vision of what this is going to be. And then you hire one person, and that one person might be part-time. And then you hire two people, or you start, bringing outsourcing different things to different people. But you really have to earn that right to actually be what you think a boss is. Yeah. It was a great
And you find out real
experience.
quick, I mean, we all have this idea in our mind of the entrepreneurs that we know. So everyone thinks about Elon Musk, and even someone that came up when the employees saw a Tim Cook, say, well, I know Tim Cook's not cleaning bathrooms. He's out there directing, he's vision, he's guidance, this is what we're going to do. And that's all fine when you're in a company that you can go out and raise funds to go and get people that are qualified to do jobs to come in. Bootstrapping a company is a very different thing.
Absolutely.
I have to have money to pay someone so I can hire them. That means, okay, I'm doing all of it.
I wonder if Tim Cook ever did clean bathrooms in his young years.
Someone should find out if that was his story. I'd like to know if Elon Musk was cleaning bathrooms at PayPal.
Most people don't understand what entrepreneurship really looks like. And it looks like cleaning toilets. A whole lot more than it looks like you bossing people around. Chris got this so right. You have to earn the opportunity in a bootstrap company to hire people and tell them what to do. Because if you're bootstrapping and you're not doing something well already, you can't afford to pay anyone to come on and be a part of your team. This is a really important concept. Being a business owner and being an entrepreneur in the very beginning is a very lowly role. It doesn't come with a lot of prestige, and actually, it's kind of embarrassing the things that you have to do just to keep the business afloat. But we don't think about that and talk about that. We talk about and idolize these startup founders that have raised billions of dollars across the board, and yes, that is a way to do it. But unless you have what it takes to raise billions of dollars, you're like the rest of us, and you have to bootstrap that business, which means that you will be a party of one at one point. And then as you get good at doing your business and at wowing your customers and providing a product and service that they love to receive from you, then they give you revenue, which turns into profit, which turns into your ability to scale up through hiring people to be a part of the mission that you joined on. But you have to earn that. It doesn't just come to you. On to our next highlight. I sat down with Ashita Agrawal, the founder and CEO of The Tap, which is really a whole new ecosystem for brands to help them with a post-purchase experience with their customers. Ashita's got some really interesting ideas about magic and how technology feels a lot like magic to people that don't understand that technology. Let's take a look.
It's such a cool thing to tap on a product and have the experience. So the times that I've used it, I remember even showing my wife one day on a skincare product, and she goes, oh, why is there a sticker on it? I go, well, just tap it with your phone and you'll find out. And she's like, I don't know that I'm interested. I might just tap it with your phone. You'll see. She taps with her phone. She goes, oh, that's cool, because this experience pops up And all of a sudden now she's in this zone where she can see like the skincare quiz, and she can see how she can earn points towards getting free stuff from the brand. And she's seen all the information for the brand. That, I think, had the feeling to her of like, how is that even possible that you tap it and then this happens? You've told me about your love of magic as a kid and your desire to turn technology today into magic, and that technological experience for people that maybe they're kind of the same thing. Like technology to one person is magic to somebody else. This feels a lot like that, but where does that love of magic come from for you? And is that what's kind of driving you to kind of make this experience feel that way for consumers?
Absolutely. I mean, the story I always tell is I was a big Harry Potter nerd growing up. So in 4th grade, I think it was the 5th book or something that was coming out, and my parents took me to a Barnes & Noble book launch. So I was super excited. And while you were waiting in line, there was a little area you could go to where you take a little wand and you point it at a light bulb, you yell Lumos, and the light bulb lights up. And in 4th grade, when that happened, I was like, cool, like I'm quitting school tomorrow. I'm a wizard. I'm ready to go to Hogwarts. Like, sorry, mom and dad, can't come with me, whatever. And obviously, as I've grown up, I realized why that worked, right? It's IoT devices, you're connecting through a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and it's enabling that light bulb to light up. But I still couldn't really understand why that's not magic. I mean, I didn't touch the light bulb. I pointed this wand and the light bulb lit up. Just because I understand how it works, why is that not magic? So that experience has always really stuck with me. And I find magic in everyday places. I think technology is scientifically crafted magic, is what I call it. And it happens in everyday life. Like when you are talking to Siri or Alexa and you're asking what the weather's going to be today, or what the news is for the day, you're talking to a device as if you're talking to a human being.
Yeah.
There's just or like the drones when you're watching a football game and you're like, you feel like you're right there actually watching it. You're like flying with the drone trying to see whatever's going on. I think technology brings magical experiences for people. We just get used to it, and then we don't see it that way just because we understand how it works. But I've never seen it that way. And my whole career, I've just kind of been in the pursuit of creating that like magic moment for people, because there's no feeling like the exact feeling your wife had. You tapped on this thing and you're like, whoa, like that was really cool. Now everything I need is right here.
Yeah.
And it just makes me really happy to see people do that.
Well, you're a Harry Potter nerd. I'm a bit of an Ancient Aliens nerd. You ever seen that show before?
I have, yes.
Okay, so History Channel, I love it. It's pretty kooky and out there, but I like to wonder.
Yeah.
They like to relate that so much of what you see in mythology is real stuff that happened, and people saw it and thought it was magic.
Yes.
Because they didn't have the words to describe what was happening. And it feels to me a lot like what I saw go in my wife's eyes when she tapped it and it popped up, and it was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like I like the whole experience around that to then be able to go and experience that with the brand. That was cool to experience with her. I think brands of the future that are thinking about, do we stick with the stuff that's been working and just continue to do the email marketing and the SMS, and we bump up our loyalty program in the face of saturation of those different styles of trying to get a customer to be retained? Talk to me about what you think the brands of the future have to be doing in the next 2 to 3 years with AI coming around the corner. Who's going to fall behind and why?
I think brands are really going to have to pay attention to their customers. There's so much that's going on in the world of brands. You're dealing with product and marketing and acquisition and finances. And I get it. There's a lot that's going on. But you have to put yourself in the shoes of your consumer to really understand what they need. And it's not just your product. It's the experience that comes with your product itself. I also think that brands need to be more honest with themselves, that you've created all this great content and you're making the assumption that all of your customers are seeing all your content. Therefore, they're using your product correctly, they're really excited about buying from you again, etc. I think in the world that we live in today, in the world we will live in the next 2 to 3 years, the brands that will win are the ones that really understand their customer and want to make sure that they get the full package, no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're a DTC customer. It doesn't matter if you bought me on Amazon. It doesn't matter if you found me somewhere random on the street. But let me give you the full package. It's not just about my product. It's about the entire brand experience that comes with it. And the brands that do that right are the ones that are going to win.
Here's my takeaway from the Ashita highlights. If you're not doing something that makes your customer feel like you're doing magic, you're probably doing something wrong. Because that's how you want your customers to feel. If you've impacted them in that way, they're not going anywhere. They feel like, what an amazing time to be alive. I get to be a part of this product and this service. Your job is to go and find ways to wow your customers so much that they think it must be magic. And if you solve that problem, you're going to be a very, very wealthy person. Our next highlight comes from a conversation that breaks away from our normal business talk. I sat down with Paige Elizabeth, who's the author of Leading an Intentional Life and a coach to hundreds of women, because I had a lot of questions about what women are going through that men don't understand, and what kind of men should we be based on the women that she's been coaching. Here's her thoughts on what the perfect guy would look like.
But you've heard the pain points that women have, the lack of support emotionally and carrying too much of the burden. Can you describe for me what the perfect guy would be doing, just so we can get an idea, generally speaking, of what would fill most of the needs for most of these women?
So I think one of the big paradoxes is, men like to claim they're leaders, but then they take no lead, right? So women, they want a man who just initiates and takes the lead. What does that look like? Don't make me choose where to go for dinner. Don't ask me to tell you how to clean the house or do laundry or pick up things. Because men will be like, well, if she just tells me, I'll do it. Well, we don't want to have to. We want a self-starter. Like, if you lived alone, would your house be a mess? Would your laundry never be done? Like, what are those things that you would do to take care of yourself? And who knows, maybe you'd be hiring out a maid and you'd be doing none of it. But we want more of that, like taking stuff off of our plate without having to push it off or tell you to do it.
Sure.
So it's a lot of those complaints. I'm a little bit more of a commitment avoidant person by nature.
Okay.
I've never been one that had to have a boyfriend. I've really enjoyed my independence over the years. So as soon as I see it trending in a direction I don't want, I'm usually out.
Okay.
I will find myself buried long term, with really crappy relationships. When I was younger, I went back and forth with a guy for 8 years.
Okay.
But it was too young to really even measure these things. We didn't get married. We didn't have kids. You know what I mean? But so from what I understand about my peers, what my family, what they've gone through, because I haven't had firsthand experience with that complaint.
Yeah.
I've just watched them. But the thing that, and this man will be like, women do this too. I'm sure they do. The inability to sit with a complaint or hey, can we talk about this? I don't like that you did this. So it's the deflection. And when you constantly deflect from something, you create distance, and then men wonder why she just wanted out at a certain point, but he didn't see where she was trying to connect and kept shutting her down.
Sure.
Over time, she made the complaint. She wasn't a nag, but she came across as a nag to you, and now she doesn't want to do it anymore, and she's out.
Yeah.
So, I guess someone who's willing to listen and be empathetic. And men have this idea that if they go to therapy, they're weak. That's not true at all. If they listen or practice empathy or compassion, that they're weak. Or that if they cry, they're weak. That is not true at all. What a healthy woman is going to call weakness is avoidance, deflection, the shutting down, the running away, the not dealing with something, pushing it off. These are behaviors that we're okay, you're a weak man. That is not a strength. That is grotesque. Someone who leans in, listens, looks for solutions, takes the lead when you say you have a problem. That is a man.
Look, emotional support is not something that I'm great at, and I think most other men suffer from the same disease. Is it a disease, or is it just a problem that we need to intentionally work on? My takeaway from Paige is that I've got a lot of things I need to work on personally, but now we understand from the mindset of a woman on what they're looking for in the perfect guy. Food for thought. Our final highlight today comes from a conversation with Scott Morris, who's been a purchasing director for more than 30 years, working for some huge companies like Station Casinos and also, most recently, Marriott. He's got some ideas on vendors that are coming in. What are the red flags when someone's trying to sell him? Because if you've got a business, you don't want to be one of these people producing a red flag.
What would go through your mind as director of purchasing when one of your vendors, US based, is quoting way below what you think the new market rate should be?
Well, there's always red flags that come up whenever you're buying things, and one of the biggest red flags is when someone is selling you something that's 30% less than what everyone else is trying to sell it to you for. Right? So, I would be hesitant to buy some of those things just because. You don't want to get caught on anything on the back end where it looks like you're going to be held responsible for it later, or the vendor's going to be held responsible for something later.
And you'd be held responsible by Marriott or Station Casinos for that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there are fines that are possible to different places if you're caught dealing with some of these businesses that are a little bit. Not as on the up and up as some of the other ones are.
Yeah.
So, I would be hesitant to buy anything from anyone that, you certainly have to do your due diligence to find out why the product is so much less than everybody else's. But that's
interesting. So when you're buying for Marriott, you're buying for Station Casinos, what are the other red flags besides someone coming in and just being way too good of a deal? Like, what are you watching out for to protect the casino?
There's a number of things when the price is much lower than everybody else's, especially not so much always on the food side. It could be on the food side as well, but it could be that the vendor has got a closeout from someone from one of the manufacturers somewhere, and it might be something that I need to buy consistently for years, maybe.
Yeah,
and they're going to sell it to you at a really low price. But then they can't get it again.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. So you have to be careful with that. I've seen that on multiple occasions where, hey, I got a great deal for you on this China, this flatware. And then you buy it, and then it's like, I need to place a reorder, and like, we that's discontinued. We can't get that anymore. So
you
have to watch out for things like that, and then you have to explain to people upstairs why you can't get matching flatware in China that you just bought 3 months ago, right? So those are certainly red flags that you look for. People that are trying to move things really, really quickly. I'm always watching out for, hey, I can give you this price if you buy it in the next 6 hours, or, but you have to take it today. To give you that price, you have to take it today. So just things like that are red flags that, why do you have to move this all of a sudden? It might have the expiration date on some dairy product or some beef or whatever it may be. It might expire in 3 days, and they're not telling you that. So, if you have to buy this in the next 3 hours, I can get you this deal. No, that doesn't sound very good. So, things like that are always red flags that you look for.
So, if it sounds too good to be true in purchasing,
most of the time it is.
Now, there's a lot of other red flags that would pop up as you think about your business serving in a vendor relationship with someone else. Don't be the one who's coming in just trying to win on price. And are they looking for partners or just some type of transactional sale? Looking for partners, you can't sell it just one time. You got to find a way to be able to serve that customer over and over and over again. That's what partnership is all about. Great lessons here from Scott Morris. All right, that's it for the recap episode and the highlights from episodes 11 through 20. The next 10 episodes, we've got a great lineup of guests coming in to share their expertise, both in business and also on the personal front as well. And we're deep diving into more personal conversations to hear how did they win And what insights do they have for us to learn from so we can turn this podcast into actionable advice? That's it for today. Thanks for rolling with Steve, and I will see you next time.